So, how do we manage our emotional state when our feelings seem to be so volatile, so uncontrollable? No sooner do we have some stability in feeling that something, even small, it doesn't have to be big, it could be actually the smallest thing. We're driving and someone cuts us off. We receive a message that we interpret in such a way that we feel hard done by, and our feelings erupt. And suddenly our whole state of being is tipped in a negative direction. And I think the answer to that question, in order to pay it heed, we really have to consider certain things first. For one thing, we have to understand that this isn't merely a personal issue that we have to deal with, although we personally have to address it. But it is a collective issue. It is, in a sense, a human issue that we are all being called upon to face and to address the fluctuation of our emotions and the will and the effort to put things in perspective. So, what might be some practical things that we can apply in our lives that can help us? I think if I have to put these things in a sort of system, in 3 steps, let's say, I would think of it in this way. Number 1, first of all, is to understand that we are not alone in this. You are not alone. That's the very first thing. That it is a kind of human experiment, a human adventure, a human challenge that we're faced with if we are to ascend in maturity, ascend in consciousness, ascend in our level of being. So that's the first thing. And the beauty of this understanding is that, for one thing, it makes one feel less alone. And for another thing, it makes one feel less wrong. Because it seems to me that there's a sort of prevalent attitude amongst almost all of us, and that is to avoid being wrong. Everybody wants to be right, but no one wants to be wrong. And that should tell us something. What it tells us is that no one is, in fact, wrong. Because every perspective is valid upon the consciousness that creates that perspective. In other words, the level of consciousness or the level of that person is coming from. You can't say the second floor view, for example, is wrong compared to the third floor view or to the first floor view. It's not. It's all relative. And that leads us to the second point of understanding in this system. And that is, no one else is responsible for your emotions. You are. Whatever you're feeling is your responsibility. No one is causing you to feel those things. As a lot of people seem to be of the opinion, other people are causing me to feel this way. Other people are to blame for the reason I feel the way I feel. It's that person, it's this message, it's this car, it's that things did not go according to my expectations, and so on and so forth. But the fact is, you are feeling what you're feeling, and you're required to understand that you are responsible for those feelings. Each one of us has to address their own feelings. Each one of us is responsible for their feelings. And that's another attempt for us to try to be right again. When we say that the reason I'm feeling this way is because that person did that to me. My girlfriend, my boyfriend, my mother, my father, my boss, the environment, the president. Everyone is the reason why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. That's just not true. There's so many reasons for that. It's not an intelligent position to hold either, because if somebody or something outside of you is responsible for the way you're feeling, then that something or that person has power over you. And by default, that means that you are a victim. So it's really important to understand that each one of us is responsible for the feelings that our organism generates. The mind interprets a particular situation in a certain way, mostly negative, and then that negative interpretation causes a sort of internal provocation of emotion. It causes an internal friction. And in the absence of presence, in the absence of awareness, these interpretations that the mind is generating 24/7 are going to be, on the whole, largely negative. At least they're going to be in direct association with our expectation, in direct association with our past. In other words, we're literally thinking out of our past. We're literally interpreting reality according to our past. So we're not interpreting the situation according to the present reality, that I'm safe, there's nothing going on right now. My life is an opportunity, an ongoing opportunity. Instead, I interpret this person cutting me off in the street, this message that I get, this situation, according to my past, according to my learning, according to my convictions, my beliefs, and what have you. So I'm not really living in real time. So the very important thing is to get that I alone am responsible for my emotions. Now I get, and I think we all get, that it's not as easy to do as it seems. And this is what this is about. As we said earlier, understanding that this is a collective experiment that we are required to accept. We have no choice. We have to deal with our emotions. And the second thing is that no one is responsible for what you're feeling. And the reason you're feeling the way you're feeling is because of your interpretations, your mental commentary on this thing that has happened or is about to happen. So it's your commentary, your mental interpretation, and the associations that this mental interpretation engenders in you. And it's these associations. By associations, I mean images of being hard done by, images of being wronged, images of being found to blame, Everyone is blaming everyone. The reason I'm feeling like this is because of you. No. No, you're not feeling like this because of me. You're feeling like this because of you. You're feeling that. I'm not provoking you to feel that. And I'm feeling this way. You can do whatever you want. They're my emotions. They're my responsibility. And the person who can actually be present to their emotions, in other words, a person who can manage their emotions, and not by control or repression, but by presence, by being present to them, we'll talk about that in a second, can genuinely be said to be a masterful person, because it means that that person has become aware of the role that their thinking plays in generating those emotions. And in order for them to become aware, it means that they have had to step out of the segment of time or the psychology of time, in other words, the past, and come into the present, to wake up into the present, to wake into the moment and be able to be aware of what they're thinking. That in fact, these negative thoughts are creating these negative feelings, and these negative feelings are causing this negative reaction. These negative thoughts, which are interpretations, they're not reality. Thoughts are not reality in the same sense that, or in the same way that lightning is not the sky, or the clouds are not the sky. Clouds come and go, thoughts come and go. The sky is ever there. Awareness is ever there. So your thoughts are not reality. They're electrical charges that are happening in the field of your awareness that you're buying into, that you're subscribing to, that you're identifying with. You're identifying your spacious reality, your timeless reality, with your thoughts that are subject to time. So the eternal has become ephemeral. The timeless has become subject to time. And that can only be seen, of course, when there's presence. That can only be seen when there's awareness. And presence and awareness are only possible in the now. As long as you are continuously identified with your thoughts, in other words, you have not yet seen the space between you as spaciousness and your thoughts. You have not yet noticed that your thoughts come and go, but you still are. If you have not noticed that, then it means that you are almost entirely, if not entirely, identified with your thoughts, with a commentary that is continuously being generated about reality. And this commentary is learned, is habitual, is a hand-me-down. It was handed down to you. It's other people's convictions, other people's truths, other people's realities, not necessarily your own. So these are the things that I call by association, thinking by association. A lot of people wonder why their thoughts seem to be so random. And they are random. And the reason they're random is because we think by association, on automatic. This plus this equals this. This thing generates this image, according to my type, according to my past, according to my learning, my conditioning, my cultural reality, the time, the era, my sex, my type. All of that. So associations are very specific. They are like an ad agency that sends out specific slogans that appeal to you, but not necessarily to anybody else, or to you and your type. All men are like this. All women are like this. All politicians are like this. And of course, that's a disempowered position to take. because you never really get to find out for yourself. And you never really get to decide how things are according to what you decide. So they're like an ad agency that send out these continuous slogans. That's what that is. That's what that is. That's what that means. That's what he's doing. That's what she's doing. And unless there is at least a little presence in order to see these associations, to notice this, what some have called the inner voice, unless you've seen this, but not just to have seen it. Yes, it starts first with seeing it, but then to turn around and recognize that which is seeing. Go, yes, I'm seeing that as the object content of my mind, this lightning, and I'm also seeing me, that which is seen. And I don't mean the body, because the body itself is being seen. The body also is an object of perception. It's not the body that's seen, it's not the eyes that are seeing. Awareness is seeing. Awareness is seeing the body. Awareness is seeing thoughts. And what is awareness? Think of it as the sky. The sky that becomes aware of its fundamental reality as the field within which these electrical charges or these clouds come by. It itself does not get affected. Nothing happens to it. You can't add to the sky. You can't take away from it. In fact, the sky doesn't really exist. There is no such a thing as sky. Because the sky, or spaciousness, is the fundamental reality. How can there be something, since it already is, always is? No, there's lightning, there are thoughts, but there's no sky. There are appearances, things that appear in the dimension of our awareness, thoughts, feelings, emotions, confusions, disturbances. The images that our mind generates, what I'm calling social commentaries, what I'm also calling these mental slogans, these ads that the ad agency, which is the mind, generates for us. That's what that is. You want that. You don't want that. That's not good, and so on. And of course, this ad agency, it knows us better than we know ourselves. It's been grooming us. It's been with us since we were babies. So it knows us so precisely. And its slogans are customized according to this knowing. That's why thoughts seem so compelling. Our thinking mind seems so convincing. It's like seeing an advert put up by someone that seemed to know us so deeply. How could they know us? Well, we might apply the same question to our thinking mind. How can our thoughts know us so well so as to really appeal to us in such a compelling way that, yes, I must have that telephone, or I must have that relationship? I'm so convinced. Because these slogans, these thought commentaries are customized specifically according to our type, according to our nature, according to our nationality, according to our cultural reality, the era that we live in, the sex type of the body, so on and so forth. They're compelling, very, very compelling. So this second point is all about this understanding. No one is responsible for your thoughts. Only your thinking is. In fact, it's not even your thoughts. You are responsible for identifying with your thoughts. So what solution to this is present, becoming aware. To start to distrust your thoughts, to start to recognize the system that is in place. Your thoughts cause a particular image that produces a particular disturbance in your emotions, usually negative, and before you know it, you're feeling terrible. And you act accordingly. You react instead of just stopping for a moment. recognizing this scene, this system that's playing out behind the scenes. This is the mechanism of you. This is the machination of you that's happening in the absence of your awareness. In the absence of your awareness, that's what's happening. The third thing that we need to understand about emotions, probably the most important thing, at least in a practical sense, is that they don't last. Have you noticed your feelings of yesterday, let's say last year generally, or the year before, they don't last, they go. What was important then is no longer part of your reality today. And that's really great to know. Nothing lasts. Everything is just passing by. Your feelings that are generated, that are provoked by your negative thinking, don't last. They come up. But why do they come up? If you can have the right attitude in presence about them, you will notice that they come up in order for them to go. So in a sense, your thoughts are displacing this old material, which also belongs to the body, because let's not forget, the body itself is memory. The body itself is history. The body itself is a history of your evolution, going back 16.4 billion years or whatever scientists and so on tell us. The history of your evolution is your body, in your body. That's why fear is so compelling. Because your body contains the memory of being devoured by a bigger prey. So we fear out of the reality of our body. This depth of memory is disturbed by negative thoughts. Unless there is awareness, our lives become miserable, become retractive, regressive. But if we can become aware and notice this system, this process that's taken place behind the scenes, in that awareness itself, there is freedom. In that awareness, there's the beginning of freedom, because it means that something is awakened in the moment. We have awakened into the moment. We've been asleep. Asleep means to be identified with the past, your thinking reality, past or future. So this third point is all about understanding that these emotions don't last. And that in itself creates a sort of relief. It just means that I have to be able to now sit with these emotions, with that knowing, supporting my ability to sit with that emotions. Because look, if I didn't know that emotions come up and go, and I had to sit with emotions that, as far as I'm concerned, they're eternal, they're going to stay there forever, I'm sorry, I'm going to check out. That is too hard to bear. But no, if I have these negative feelings and I sit with them with the knowing that they too will pass, this too shall pass, or as the Buddha said, anicca, decay, everything is coming to go, everything is rising to go. If I can have that attitude, that understanding that everything comes up in order for it to go or to be liberated, then I can see that my thoughts that are disturbing these emotions are in fact helping me to release. So that situation that happened, that person that sent me the message, or that person that cut me off on the street, or the president, or even reality, all of its laws, all of its restrictions, all of its regulations, become my ally. They're causing me to think a certain way in order to cause my deep-seated emotions to rise to the surface in order for them to go. Purification, releasing. And in the noticing of this, in the process of this purification, But importantly, in the noticing of this whole thing, the way it works, situation happens, causes certain emotions, certain thoughts, like cause certain emotions. I sit with those emotions with the knowing that these emotions come up in order to go, and it's called purification, releasing. And as they release, I become lighter. And the lighter I get, the higher the quality of my thinking is. Because my state then begins to affect my thoughts, which become a little bit more positive in the beginning. And then my thoughts begin to affect a different kind of emotion. Until, some other event happens and it causes that and more liberation. And in the process of knowing this, I myself am becoming masterful. Or I'm recognizing my existing mastery, which is simply this: nothing can touch me. Like Saint Francis of Assisi said, standing in front of a valley, I wrote about this somewhere, with some friends, students, disciples, whatever they were, with him. And he pointed across the village below in the valley, wherever it was, and with a gesture of the hand, a sweep of the hand, he swept, he did this and said, "None of this can move me." In other words, none of this, nothing in this world and the activity of the world and the realities of the world can move me out of my centeredness, out of the knowing myself as the spaciousness within which my thoughts appear, my feelings appear, my body appears to me, disappears. I am spaciousness. Now that goes against everything we've been taught. We're taught about ourselves, and it's becoming cliche talk. The masters are talking about this. Eckhart Tolle is talking about this. Rupert Spira is talking about this. Ramana Maharshi, it's all he talked about. Nisargadatta, it's all he talked about. Gurdjieff, it's all he talked about. Krishnamurti, it's all he talked about. Byron Katie, it's all she talks about in her own way. They're all doing it in their own way. They're trying to point out that there is an identity crisis at play here. There is a confusion of identity. You and I and all of us are confusing ourselves in thinking that we are our thoughts, we are our physicality, we are our emotions, we are this personal identity. We forget that this personal identity is a learning, it's a memory. Bassam is a memory. I didn't know about Bassam when I was a baby. I didn't know about my sex. I didn't know about being Lebanese. I didn't know about being Muslim. I didn't know about anything. I didn't know I was a brother or I was an uncle. I didn't do. These are all after facts. I didn't know about my body. It's an after fact. It's a product of food and water. Even so, even though I didn't know about these add-ons, these after-facts, there was this still awareness. I remember it. My personal self remembers that. Bassam remembers spaciousness that, by the way, I return to in my sleep every day, every night. And that is present to me right now. So there's an identity crisis. There is a wrong bonding, spaciousness, the dimension of awareness, the field of all potentiality, as science calls it, is wrongly identifying with this personal identity. And of course, it has to do that. It has to do that in order for it to have an experience of reality. As Rupert Spira says, it has to forget itself as eternal. It has to forget itself as timeless in order to experience the dimension of time. There has to be this forgetting. But now the time for remembering is here. And look at the word remembering, how beautiful it is. Re-membering, bringing together. Remembering. It means withdrawing our attention from the world. It means retracting, relaxing our focus, our attention from the world where it has been fixated all this time. Remembering, like an army that has spread itself thin across many frontiers, is now calling back its forces, and they are retracting. They are consolidating. The power is being retreated. Remembering is a reconsolidation of our power that has been sending out. We've given our power to other people to cause us pain. You can cause me pain. What does that say about me? You're powerful and I'm not. You're the guilty one because we have subscribed to the ideology of being a victim. But we're not victims. And others are not to blame for how I feel. You are not responsible for my emotions, no matter how bad your actions may be. No matter what you do, I am responsible for my emotions. I'm not condoning your actions necessarily. Sure, you can, it's not a good idea for you to do that, or for me to do that. It's not a good idea for me to go and hurt someone. It's not a good idea for me to accuse anyone. It's not a good idea for me to go and rape anyone. That's a given. But even so, I'm responsible for my feelings. I'm responsible for victimizing and being victimized. Because if I'm not, I have to control the world. I have to control you. I have to put in systems in place to make sure that you do not do that again. I live a life of fear and condemnation. There's a much easier way. Take responsibility for your emotions. In order to do that, you have to understand the way negative emotions are generated. And as we've been saying, your thoughts generate those emotions. But that can only happen in the absence of your presence, in the absence of your awareness. In the absence of presence, in the absence of your seeing, the system is playing out. The ad agency is putting out slogans. They're telling you that that's what happens. That's what that person meant when he looked at you that way. That's what that girl meant when she walked past and looked at the ground instead of looking at me, and whatever. You interpret things according to you. That's your privilege, free will. But don't go and hold us accountable for your feelings. You take responsibility for your thoughts. Those thoughts are creating images that are causing internal disturbances that you call emotions. And that's when one becomes truly powerful. And meditation is the vehicle for becoming increasingly more present, more conscious. It creates a laboratory condition, if you like, wherein you can observe the system that has been taking place behind the scenes, behind your back, while you've been sleeping, taking care of business. You've made life all about survival. You're taking care of business. That there is no time for consciousness. There's no time for presence. There's no time for awareness. You say, well, I don't have the time. I've got to do that. It's not a luxury. You've made life all about awareness instead of self-knowing. And it is this that allows this unconscious system to recycle, to keep ticking. So meditation creates a laboratory condition wherein we can now, take a microscope and take a look at how things have been for us, what's been happening behind the scenes. We're choosing 1 hour a day, 20 minutes a day, twice a day, whatever it is, where we go in to take a look, to notice. Because there's just no such a thing as happiness as the byproduct of a life that has been built on survival. There's no happiness. You'll have some security. But have you noticed how life always has a way of bringing you back down to size? You can have $1 billion, but you'll still feel like a poor person unless you have dealt with your poverty consciousness. That your poverty is a byproduct of a survivalist attitude that has been keeping you busy. Busy, busy, busy. You don't have time to stop to take a look at the facts. You don't have time to stop to ask yourself a question like, what am I? You believe you are the body, this physical reality. Even when science today says, no, you're not. The body is 0.99999, or not even 0.1111% physical. Atomic structure. 99.999999 is actually invisible space. Spaciousness. Spaciousness is your fundamental reality. It is the most of you. Your body makes up a total of 0.1%, not even 1%. So in your busyness, you can't stop to take a look. You can't stop to give yourself 20 minutes a day, twice a day. You can't give yourself time to go and join a meditation group. It's not a luxury. It's not a luxury. It is a necessity. Because when you know yourself, then you can begin to live according to that knowing. If you can know yourself as spaciousness, limitless, all potential, divine, your life can then be lived according to your knowing. Right now, you know yourself as this physical body, it's subject to time. It's progressively dying. Your living is urgent, desperate, and frustrated. And you live and you build a life according to that knowing, or according to that not knowing, which traditionally has been called ignorance. What does that mean? It means ignorance of your essential reality as spaciousness. What is enlightenment? It is the knowing of your essential nature as spaciousness. So these are the three things. I hope you've enjoyed them. Let me know in the comments below if this has been useful to you. Take care.